What if I told you that one woman's genetic makeup was so twisted by centuries of royal inbreeding that scientists compare her DNA to children of full siblings? By the end of this video, you'll meet her, and trust me, her story will shock you to your core. But first, let's journey through the dark halls of European royalty, where keeping bloodlines pure created living nightmares. Picture this: Spain, 1830. A baby girl is born whose family tree looks more like a family wreath. Isabella II wasn't just the product of uncle-niece marriage, her grandparents were also her great-grandparents. Yes, you heard that right. At 16, they forced her to marry her double second cousin. 11 pregnancies followed, but here's the heartbreaking truth: only 5 children survived. The rest? Lost to the genetic chaos of centuries of inbreeding. But Isabella's story gets darker. Historians believe none of her surviving children belonged to her husband. Why? Her husband was likely gay, leaving Isabella trapped in a loveless political arrangement that destroyed both her personal life and her reign. From Spain, we travel to Austria, where Marie Louise's parents were double first cousins, sharing both sets of grandparents. Think about that genetic lottery for a moment. While most people have 8 great-grandparents, Marie Louise had only 4. Scientists today only see this level of genetic compression in completely isolated populations. She was essentially a walking genetic experiment. At 18, her father made the ultimate betrayal: he married her off to Napoleon Bonaparte, his sworn enemy. Imagine being a teenage girl, already carrying invisible genetic burdens, suddenly becoming a political pawn married to one of history's most feared rulers. You might think these stories belong to dusty history books. You'd be wrong. Meet Lorraine Whitaker, proof that inbreeding's shadow still haunts us today. Living in modern America, Lorraine became part of multiple generations of isolated, inbred marriages. She's not just a victim, she's the mother of someone many consider the most inbred person alive today. Her family's documentary footage is so disturbing that viewers call it haunting. It shows us that genetic tragedy doesn't need crowns and castles, just isolation and desperate circumstances. But none of these women compare to our final story. Born on Christmas Eve 1634, she married her own uncle at 14. Her brother became known as the Bewitched King, and her genetic makeup was so compromised that modern scientists still study her family tree in horror. Who was this woman, and how did centuries of royal obsession create the most inbred person in recorded history? Stay tuned, because her story will change how you think about power, genetics, and human tragedy forever. Now, let me reveal the woman I promised you at the beginning, the one whose story will haunt your dreams. Meet Maria Antonia of Austria, born in 1669. If you thought the previous stories were disturbing, prepare yourself. Maria Antonia wasn't just inbred, she was more genetically compromised than a child born from full siblings having a baby together. Her family tree wasn't a tree at all. It was a twisted circle where the same bloodlines looped back on themselves over and over. Her mother literally called her husband uncle, because that's exactly what he was, her biological uncle who became her husband. Here's what makes Maria Antonia's story incredible: she should have been born with severe deformities or died in infancy. Instead, she defied all odds and appeared completely normal. She was the miracle exception in a family where genetic disasters were the rule. But fate had cruel plans. At 16, they married her off to her second cousin. While her husband partied with mistresses, Maria Antonia lived as a quiet, introverted prisoner in her own palace. 2 of her babies died at birth, the genetic price finally catching up. In 1692, she gave birth to a healthy son who seemed to offer hope for the Spanish throne. But tragedy struck one final time. Maria Antonia died on Christmas Day at just 23 years old, and her son later died of smallpox. Her death triggered the devastating War of Spanish Succession that tore Europe apart for 13 years. Maria I of Portugal proves these horrors didn't end with the Habsburgs. Born in 1734, she was the product of 16 consecutive generations of family marriages. 16. Her parents weren't just cousins, they represented centuries of the same bloodlines mixing over and over. At 25, Maria married her own uncle to keep the family name pure. Half of her children died from genetic complications. The survivors watched their mother slowly lose her mind until she couldn't rule anymore. They called her Maria the Troubled, and now you know why. Even ancient civilizations paid this terrible price. Deep in Tutankhamun's tomb, archaeologists found two tiny mummies labeled 317A and 317B. These weren't famous queens, they were Tutankhamun's stillborn daughters. Their father was the famous boy king. Their mother was his half-sister and wife. The Egyptian royal family had practiced sibling marriage for generations, believing it kept their bloodline divine. Instead, it created genetic disasters. These infant mummies showed severe deformities, clear evidence that even ancient Egypt's gods couldn't protect royal children from the laws of biology. Think this ended with dusty history books? Think again. In modern Australia, Kimberly Colts lives as possibly the most inbred person alive today. Her family operated like a cult, repeating the same genetic mistakes for generations. From ancient pharaohs to modern victims, the pattern remains unchanged. The obsession with pure bloodlines creates only suffering, tragedy, and genetic horror that spans centuries. The horror stories continue in our modern world. Kimberly Colts represents something even more disturbing than royal obsession, a family that became a cult of genetic destruction. For generations, they committed unspeakable acts in complete isolation until police finally raided their compound and threw family members in prison. This isn't about royal bloodlines or dynastic pride. This is about what happens when society forgets people exist, allowing darkness to flourish in hidden corners where no one's watching. But now, the moment you've been waiting for. The woman who claims the horrifying title of history's most inbred royal, Cleopatra VII, the legendary Egyptian queen. Forget everything Hollywood taught you about her beauty and romance. The real Cleopatra carried a genetic burden so twisted it defies imagination. Her family, the Ptolemies, created the most systematic inbreeding program in human history. For 300 years, they married brother to sister, uncle to niece, over and over again. This wasn't occasional, it was their sacred rule to keep power within the family. Cleopatra's parents were siblings. Her grandparents were siblings. Even her own brothers and sisters married each other. Imagine a family tree that's actually a family circle, where the same bloodlines loop back endlessly. Her genetic makeup was so compressed that she had fewer unique ancestors than some isolated island populations. The Ptolemies were so obsessed with purity that they barely allowed outsiders into their bloodline for 3 centuries. Despite this genetic nightmare, Cleopatra became one of history's most powerful rulers. She spoke 9 languages, commanded armies, and seduced Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. But behind her intelligence and cunning lay the invisible burden of centuries of genetic compression. These stories paint a clear picture of power's true cost. Look at the numbers. Isabella II lost 6 babies out of 11 pregnancies. Marie Louise survived when 7 of her 12 siblings died. Half of Marie I's children died from genetic complications. King Charles II of Spain couldn't even chew his food properly due to his deformed Habsburg jaw. His genetic makeup was so compromised that people thought he was cursed by witchcraft. The mental toll was equally brutal. Marie I of Portugal slowly lost her mind until she couldn't rule. These weren't coincidences, they were the inevitable result of ignoring biology for politics. From ancient Egyptian pharaohs to modern cult families, the pattern remains unchanged. Whether it's Tutankhamun's stillborn daughters or the Whittaker family's documentary horror, the consequences of extreme inbreeding create the same tragic results. These stories serve as a powerful warning: the obsession with pure bloodlines, whether for royal power or twisted family control, always ends in genetic disaster, broken lives, and generational trauma. The crown jewels and palace walls couldn't protect these women from biology's unforgiving laws. Their stories remind us that some prices are too high to pay, no matter how much power you're trying to preserve. These performers show us that behind every spectacle was a human story of survival, dignity, and unexpected triumph. Dominique Castana weighed less than 70 pounds despite being tall in height. His ribs showed clearly through paper-thin skin, likely from tuberculosis or another wasting disease that made him appear almost ghostly. His act was simple but powerful, he just stood still. Often paired with larger performers for dramatic contrast, Dominique's presence alone was enough to leave audiences speechless. People wondered how someone so thin could even be alive. While his condition caused him physical suffering, he found a way to earn a living by simply existing on stage, turning his struggle into survival. Standing just 3 feet tall, Frankie Saludo proved that greatness has nothing to do with size. As a beloved clown with Ringling Brothers, he brought pure happiness to circus tents across America. Frankie carried a live rabbit on stage, performed brilliant slapstick comedy, and even did perfect Charlie Chaplin impressions. Unlike many performers who were laughed at, Frankie made people laugh with him through genuine talent and charm. His story reminds us that differences can become celebrations. He retired with dignity and is remembered as one of the greatest little clowns in circus history. Born with dipagus, a rare condition that gave her 4 legs, 2 normal-sized and 2 smaller ones, Josephine became known as the 4-legged girl from Texas. But Myrtle's real story happened after she left the circus. She married a doctor and amazingly gave birth to 5 children, something doctors thought impossible. Her unique anatomy actually made motherhood possible in ways that stunned the medical world. In an era that saw her as a curiosity, Myrtle built a quiet life filled with love, family, and dignity. She proved that even the most extraordinary physical differences couldn't prevent the most ordinary human joys. Born without arms in 1914, Frances O'Connor could have lived a hidden, limited life. Instead, she chose the spotlight and amazed the world. At just 15, she joined Ringling Brothers and demonstrated incredible skills. She ate, sewed, drank tea, applied makeup, and even wrote letters, all using only her toes with remarkable grace and precision. Frances didn't perform as a novelty act. She performed as living proof of human adaptability and strength. Her act earned genuine admiration, not just shock. She later married and retired quietly, but her legacy of independence and capability inspired countless people. At only 21 inches tall, Pauline Musters holds the Guinness World Record as the shortest woman ever. But her talent was enormous. This gifted acrobat and dancer captivated audiences across Europe with elegant performances, balancing acts, and spirited charm. Known as Princess Pauline, she toured Paris, London, and New York, earning respect as a true artist. Tragically, her fragile health couldn't handle the demands of travel. She died of pneumonia at just 19, only 2 days into her American debut. Newspapers mourned her not as a curiosity, but as a talented performer whose brief life had touched thousands. Born with Sturge-Weber syndrome, which caused severe facial birthmarks and deformities, Grace McDaniels was cruelly labeled the mule-faced woman. But behind that harsh stage name lived a woman of incredible strength. Grace joined traveling circuses in the 1930s not for fame, but to support herself and her beloved son, Elmer. She insisted on dignity, refusing degrading photo opportunities and making sure Elmer received a proper education. Those who knew her described Grace as intelligent, soft-spoken, and fiercely protective of her child. When she died in 1958, Elmer buried her in their hometown, far from the bright circus lights, but close to the love that had always mattered most. These final stories reveal the complex reality behind circus life, where extraordinary people found both opportunity and exploitation, love and loss, dignity and despair. Mary Ann lived an ordinary life as a nurse, wife, and mother of 4 children in Britain. But when her husband died unexpectedly, everything changed. She began developing acromegaly, which enlarged and hardened her face and body. Now widowed and visibly changed, Mary faced an impossible situation. How could she support 4 children when society rejected her appearance? In desperation, she entered an Ugliest Woman contest, and won. That cruel victory brought circus offers. Though the work was dehumanizing, Mary took it to feed her family. She toured Europe and America, enduring whispers and stares while smiling through the pain. Behind every headline mocking her appearance was a mother doing whatever it took to survive. When she died in 1933, Mary had endured more cruelty than most people ever will. Today, we remember her not with ridicule, but with respect for her incredible sacrifice. Known by her stage name Ariana, Pansy performed one of the most terrifying acts in circus history. She suspended herself from trapezes using only her teeth, spinning and swinging high above crowds with no safety net. Audiences screamed and turned away, but Pansy held firm with jaw clenched on leather grips or steel rings, trusting her strength and timing. Her act became legendary during World War I-era circuses. But Pansy represented more than daredevilry. In a time when women were expected to stay grounded, she literally soared through the air, symbolizing female strength and independence. Born with a cleft palate and severe facial deformity, Bill could have hidden from the world. Instead, in his 40s, he turned his difference into his brand. Using makeup and prosthetics, he became the man with 3 eyes and 2 noses. While the third eye was fake, audiences didn't care, they were captivated by the mystery. More importantly, Bill found genuine love within the sideshow community. He married Mildred, known as the alligator-skinned woman. The couple traveled together, worked together, and appeared on posters as a devoted duo. Bill's story proves that sometimes embracing your difference becomes the path to freedom and love. Born in 1844 with no legs and shortened arms, Eli could have lived as an object of pity. Instead, he became a symbol of triumph. Using incredible upper body strength, Eli performed flips, spins, and parallel bar routines that left audiences breathless. People came expecting to feel sorry for him, they left feeling inspired. P.T. Barnum personally championed Eli as a marvel of perseverance. More remarkably, Eli married, raised 4 children, and maintained a stable family life, exceptional achievements for any sideshow performer of that era. Born in Germany without arms or legs due to tetraamelia syndrome, Aloya immigrated to America with her half-brother's support and joined traveling shows as the Beautiful Venus. And she truly was beautiful. Using only her mouth, Aloya combed her hair, dressed herself, wrote letters, and even sewed. Her performances stunned audiences not because of her condition, but because of what she accomplished despite it. Her act was skill, control, and quiet rebellion against everyone who said she was helpless. Perhaps the most famous name on this list, Joseph suffered from severe deformities that made his head grow 3 times normal size. Exhibited cruelly as the Elephant Man, Joseph endured years of public humiliation. But Joseph wasn't the monster people expected. He was gentle, poetic, and brilliant. He loved Shakespeare, built intricate cathedral models from paper, and longed for simple human dignity. Eventually, he found refuge at London Hospital, where doctors treated him with respect. His story reached the world through David Lynch's 1980 film, but his real-life plea still echoes through history: I am not an animal. I am a human being. These African-American brothers with albinism were kidnapped from their Virginia home in 1899. Circus promoters renamed them Eco and Eco, claiming they were Martian ambassadors or cannibals from Ecuador. For over 20 years, they were exhibited across America and Europe, told their mother was dead. Their identities weren't just exploited, they were completely erased. But their mother, Harriet, never stopped searching. When she recognized them on a circus poster decades later, she launched a legal battle that shocked the nation. She won not only their freedom but their back pay and legal guardianship. Afterward, George and Willie continued performing on their own terms, playing music and living peacefully. Their story proves that love and determination can overcome even the cruelest exploitation. These stories span centuries and continents, from ancient Egyptian tombs to modern American circuses. They reveal a fundamental truth: behind every spectacle lived real people with dreams, fears, love, and incredible resilience. Some found dignity in defying expectations. Others discovered love in unexpected places. Many endured exploitation but carved out moments of genuine human connection. Their legacy reminds us that difference doesn't diminish humanity, it reveals the extraordinary ways people adapt, survive, and sometimes even thrive against impossible odds.